There's a moment many people begin noticing, sometime after 50, that's difficult to explain at first. It often appears quietly, in the afternoon. Not exhaustion exactly, not illness, not even ordinary sleepiness. It feels more like the body slowly loses momentum. A walk that once felt effortless suddenly feels heavier. Climbing stairs feels oddly draining. After a busy afternoon, recovery takes longer than it used to. Sometimes, even after a full night's sleep, the body still feels like it's operating on reduced power. And for many adults, the most unsettling part is not the fatigue itself. It's the feeling that the body no longer creates energy the way it once did. For most of life, people assume energy is simply something they have. But deep inside the body, energy is being produced continuously, every second of every day, inside microscopic structures called mitochondria. And one small compound plays an essential role in that process: CoQ10. Its full name is coenzyme Q10, a substance so important to cellular energy production that without it, the body's energy systems cannot operate efficiently. Researchers have studied CoQ10 for decades because of its connection to mitochondrial function, muscular energy, heart health, and aging. And while it is not a miracle molecule or a cure for aging, understanding what CoQ10 actually does may help explain why so many adults begin feeling physically depleted more easily later in life. Because the issue is not always laziness or lack of discipline. Sometimes the body is simply struggling to produce usable energy as efficiently as it once did. To understand why CoQ10 matters, we first need to understand how the body creates energy. Every organ and system inside the body depends on ATP to function. ATP is essentially the body's energy currency. But ATP does not magically appear. It must be produced continuously inside the mitochondria, the tiny energy-producing structures found inside nearly every cell in the body. And this is where CoQ10 becomes critically important. Inside the mitochondria is a process called the electron transport chain. This is where nutrients from food are converted into usable cellular energy. CoQ10 acts almost like an electrical shuttle within this system. It helps transfer electrons between enzymes so mitochondria can continue producing ATP efficiently. Without enough available CoQ10, energy production may become less efficient. Cells can still create energy, but often not as smoothly, rapidly, or consistently as before. Organs that require enormous amounts of cellular energy, including the heart, the brain, and the muscular system, depend heavily on efficient energy production. And when cellular energy becomes less available, physical performance is often affected directly, which may partly explain why reduced cellular energy later in life often feels physical before anything else. The body simply tires more easily. Recovery slows. Physical stamina begins shrinking in subtle ways. What makes this especially interesting is that the body naturally produces its own CoQ10. But research suggests that CoQ10 production may gradually decline with age. In younger adulthood, mitochondria tend to function more efficiently. Cellular repair happens faster, Energy production usually recovers more easily after stress, poor sleep, or physical exertion. But aging gradually changes that equation. Over time, mitochondrial efficiency appears to decline. Cellular wear and tear gradually increases. Cellular repair slows. And CoQ10 availability may decrease in multiple tissues throughout the body. The result is usually not dramatic exhaustion. It is often far more subtle. Many people describe it as reduced physical drive, not emotional motivation. Physical willingness. The body feels less capable of sustaining output for long periods of time. An afternoon task that once felt manageable now feels strangely draining. Long errands become tiring. Exercise recovery stretches into days instead of hours. And many adults quietly wonder whether this is simply what aging feels like. The answer is complicated. Aging absolutely changes the body. But scientists increasingly understand that part of aging involves changes in cellular energy production itself. In other words, the machinery responsible for generating energy may no longer be operating at full efficiency, and CoQ10 is an essential part of that energy-producing system. There is another important layer to this conversation that affects millions of adults over 50. Statin medications. Statins are among the most commonly prescribed medications in the world and can play an important role in reducing cardiovascular risk. But researchers have also identified an important biological connection involving CoQ10. Statins work by inhibiting an enzyme involved in cholesterol production inside the liver. But that same metabolic pathway is also involved in the body's natural production of CoQ10, which means some individuals taking statins may experience lower CoQ10 levels as an unintended consequence. This does not mean statins are harmful or should ever be stopped without medical guidance, but it may help explain why some people on statin therapy report muscle fatigue, reduced exercise tolerance, or feelings of physical depletion. Scientists are still studying how significant this effect may be in different individuals. Some people appear more sensitive than others, but the relationship between statins, mitochondrial function, muscle energy, and CoQ10 has become an important area of aging and cardiovascular research. And it highlights something many people never fully realize. Energy inside the body is biochemical, not merely psychological. Even ordinary movement requires enormous coordination beneath the surface. The body is constantly converting oxygen and nutrients into ATP. And mitochondria never truly stop working, which means supporting mitochondrial health becomes increasingly important with age. Not in a trendy, anti-aging sense. In a deeply practical, biological sense. Healthy sleep, regular movement, proper nutrition, and adequate recovery all play important roles in supporting mitochondrial health and stable energy production over time. And healthy CoQ10 levels may matter as well because of the role CoQ10 plays inside this energy-producing process. This is partly why researchers have explored CoQ10 supplementation in aging populations, particularly among adults experiencing reduced physical energy, cardiovascular concerns, or statin-related muscle symptoms. The evidence remains mixed in some areas, and stronger in others. Some studies suggest improvements in certain measures of fatigue, exercise capacity, or heart function. Others show more modest effects. Science is still evolving. But what remains consistently important is the biological role itself. CoQ10 is not simply a wellness trend. It is a real compound, deeply involved in one of the most fundamental processes inside the human body, the production of energy. And perhaps one of the most meaningful realizations after 50 is understanding that energy is no longer something the body can automatically take for granted. The systems beneath vitality require more support than they once did, more recovery, better sleep, more intentional movement, better metabolic health, less chronic overload, and greater respect for the invisible work happening inside the mitochondria every second of every day. Because the body is not a machine that simply wears out. It is a living energy system, constantly adapting to age, stress, sleep, medications, nutrition, and recovery. Many people blame themselves for slowing down. They assume they have become lazy, undisciplined, or weak. But biology is often far more complex than that, and sometimes more compassionate. The body is not always simply becoming weaker with age. In many cases, it is struggling to produce energy as efficiently as it once did, and understanding the role of CoQ10 inside that process may help people support the aging body with more realism, more intelligence, and far more self-compassion. If this conversation helped you better understand what may be happening beneath the surface of changing energy levels after 50, consider sharing it with someone who has quietly been wondering why their stamina feels different lately. And if you're part of the Thrive Beyond 50 community, thank you for spending this time with us. Because aging well is not about chasing youth. It is about understanding the body clearly enough to care for it wisely.